In the village of Lulami, nestled between wide plains and thick forests, lived a girl named Amara. Her presence was like the morning sun, bright, calm, and steady. She wasn't born of royalty, but her wisdom often drew the elders to silence and the children to sit at her feet. While other girls dreamed of palaces and princes, Amara dreamed of planting healing gardens, building schools with open walls, and traveling from village to village as a teacher. Her hands had learned from her mother, the healer, and her eyes had watched her father, the weaver, turn thread into beauty, far beyond the hills, in a golden palace. King Jabari ruled the kingdom of Netolo. He was a man of strength, feared in battle, and revered in the courts. Yet, as he aged, he longed for a queen, not just any woman, but one with a soul deep enough to steady his spirit. One day, a merchant told him of Amara, the girl whose voice calmed crying children, and whose words challenged even the oldest men. Curious and intrigued, the king sent riders with gifts of silk, gold, and spices. Bearing a message, the king of Netolo requests your hand. Come, be queen. When the messengers arrived, Lulemi erupted in joy. Drums echoed through the valley, and the people danced. For them, it was a blessing. A sign that their small village was now known by the crown. Amara's mother wept tears of pride, and her father clasped her hands with hope. You will live in comfort, he said. Your children will wear royal colors. But Amara was quiet. That evening, she sat beneath the baobab tree, the same tree where she'd listened to her grandmother's stories. Her dreams did not align with the glint of gold. She saw herself in classrooms, not courtrooms, in gardens, not ballrooms. She stared at the moon, and the moon seemed to stare back. Is it wrong, she whispered, to want something different from what others call a gift? By dawn, Amara had decided. She stood in the village square and, before all, said, I am honored by the king's offer, but I must decline. I belong to a different path. A hush fell. The drummer stopped. Her parents blinked in disbelief. The elders shook their heads, and the children looked to the adults for a reaction they could follow. The village buzzed with murmurs. Some called Amara brave, others foolish. No one says no to a king, they whispered. What if he takes offense? Amara's mother wept again, but this time from worry. Her father spoke less and sat longer under the mango tree, staring into the horizon. 2 days later, the king's messengers returned, not with anger, but confusion. Are you certain? They asked. Many dream of a life such as this. Amara bowed. Respectfully, I have dreams too. They may not be royal, but they are mine, and I must follow them. The king, intrigued and somewhat amused, sent a final message. Then come and speak your refusal before my face. Let me understand this girl who says no to a crown. The villagers begged her not to go. He will not forgive your boldness, they said, but Amara, steady and calm, packed her healing herbs and wrapped her shawl. I will go in peace. As she journeyed to the palace, she passed villages with empty schools, sick children, and women silenced in their homes. She stopped to help, to teach, to listen. Word spread ahead of her. A girl walks with wisdom and does not fear the king. By the time she reached the palace gates, the guards bowed not out of duty, but awe. King Jabari sat on a throne carved from ebony and gold. He expected fear in her eyes. Instead, he found depth and grace. Why do you refuse me? He asked. Am I not a good man? Do I not offer the world? Amara replied. You offer a world that is not mine. I do not seek power, but purpose. I do not wish to be queen, but to be free. Her words echoed through the chamber like thunder beneath still water. The court fell silent. Ministers exchanged glances. No one had ever denied the king, much less done so with such grace. King Jabari leaned back in his throne. You are unlike anyone I have ever met, he said, studying her face. "But what will become of you if you leave here with nothing?" "Then I will leave with everything," Amara said. "My voice, my dreams, and my freedom are not nothing. They are everything." Jabari nodded slowly. "You could help many from within these walls. But I help more when I walk among the people. A crown cannot fit over open ears and listening hearts." The king dismissed the court. He asked Amara to stay as his guest for a night, and she agreed. They dined beneath a ceiling of stars, speaking not of marriage, but of visions, education, and the soul of a kingdom. By morning the king declared, "Amara shall not be queen by title, but her spirit will be felt throughout Ntolo." Amara returned to Lulami not with jewels, but with stories and plans. She drew maps for new schools and clinics. The children followed her once more, not for tales of royalty, but for the hope she carried in her stride. The villagers, once unsure, now saw with new eyes. A girl could shape a kingdom without wearing a crown. News of Amara spread far. Other girls began to speak more boldly. Families began to ask their daughters what they dreamed of, not whom they would marry. Even in the royal court, ministers repeated Amara's words. The king himself began touring the villages more often, listening, learning. Amara began planting gardens, not just with herbs, but with books and lessons. Each village she visited received a bundle of seeds and a scroll of stories. She believed knowledge should grow just like food from the earth. Upward children recited poems beside cassava plants, and mothers learned how to write their names beneath mango trees. Slowly, Entolo's villages began to change, quietly, steadily, and beautifully. One afternoon, Amara received a letter from her mother, written shakily but proudly. "Your father smiles more now. The elders speak of you with respect. You are right to follow your voice." Tears filled Amara's eyes as she held the letter. It was not the approval of a crown she needed, but the silent nod of her family, the quiet blooming of love and understanding. The wind carried her name. Traders in distant towns spoke of the girl with braids and books. A group of young women formed a traveling circle, calling themselves the Daughters of Amara. They, too, wished to teach, to listen, and to serve. And Amara welcomed them like sisters, guiding them without claiming their voices. From his palace, King Jabari watched the movement unfolding. He saw fields that once lay barren, now rich with food and laughter. He saw fewer requests for aid, and more letters of progress. One night, he whispered to his advisors, "Perhaps the crown need not lead from ahead, but from behind the people." In Lulami, the dry season had lasted too long. Amara returned to her village, and led the people in song and dance beneath a gray sky. "Let the earth remember joy," she said. That night, the skies opened and wept with rain. Children splashed in puddles, and elders sang praises. They said Amara had brought the storm with her smile. As Amara's fame grew, she was offered seats on councils, a role in court, and even her own estate. But she refused most, choosing instead to remain on the road. Still, she began to wonder. Could she walk among the people and help guide the palace too? Was there a way to balance both paths? Around campfires, Amara taught the daughters how to hold a room with kindness and firmness. She told them, "We do not shout to be heard. We speak so that hearts open." They listened, like the night listens, to the stars quiet, bright, and full of wonder. King Jabari sent her a new letter. "I do not ask for marriage, but for mentorship. Will you teach my court what you have taught our villages?" Amara smiled. The king had changed, not with force, but with listening, and that was change worth meeting. Amara walked into the palace once more, not as a girl summoned, but as a woman invited. The ministers bowed not out of fear, but out of respect. She stood beside the king, not beneath him, and together, they drew new plans for the kingdom, a land of learning, compassion, and shared leadership. Though she visited the palace often, Amara always returned to her roots. In each village, she slept on mats, ate from calabashes, and listened to children's dreams. "You belong everywhere," one child said. Amara smiled. "That is because I began by belonging to myself." In marketplaces and mountain paths, her name was spoken like a song. "Amara taught my sister to read," one woman said. "She helped us build our school," said another. But Amara never asked for statues or songs. "Let my name live in your kindness," she would say, "not in stone." The palace once had one chair high above all others. But after Amara's visit, King Jabari had a new room, built a circle of seats, where all voices could be heard. "Wisdom grows in circles," Amara told him, "because circles never leave anyone behind." In the village of Kulu, Amara met a boy who had stopped speaking after losing his parents. She didn't ask him to talk. She simply sat with him every day, humming stories. One morning, he whispered, "A word, Amara." And she whispered back, "Thank you for sharing your voice." In a council of old men, where her presence once caused silence, Amara was now greeted with bows and laughter. The oldest elder took her hand and said, "You make change feel like an old friend." And that night, they asked her to lead the councils. Next gathering, in the village of Mabaya, a giant tree stood in the center. Amara helped build shelves into its trunk. Scrolls and stories filled its branches. Children called it the tree that reads, and every full moon, they gathered around it. Listening to tales by firelight, Amara returned home with new books, new seeds, and a new peace. Her mother's hands, once tired, now wove with pride. Her father's eyes, once cautious, now danced with joy. "You are not just our daughter," they said. "You are our light." One evening, as the stars blinked awake, Amara felt a flicker of fear. Was she doing too much? Had she become what she once resisted, a leader, into fine a cloak? But a gentle breeze answered her. "You are still the girl who walks barefoot among dreams." In a riverside village, a girl with no name sang a tune no one knew. Amara knelt beside her. "What does it mean?" she asked. The girl said, "It means I want to be seen." Amara smiled. "Then let us learn each other's names and sing together." One traveling bard asked, what would she have been like as queen? But the villagers shook their heads. "She is something more. Amara is not the queen of the palace," they said. "She is the queen of hearts." In the dry season, a river changed course and flooded the fields. Panic grew, but Amara calmed the people, gathered them, and helped dig new paths for the water to flow. "Even rivers can change direction," she said. "So can we." In the village of Nendamba, a girl handed Amara a stone painted with colors. "This is for your pocket," she said. "So you never forget the small ones, see you." Amara kept the stone close, not because it was beautiful, but because it reminded her that even the smallest gifts carry the weight of love. At a village gathering, Amara noticed a girl watching from behind a tree. She pulled out an extra stool and placed it in the circle. "This is for whoever's not ready yet," she said. The girl stepped forward slowly and sat. From that day on, every village Amara visited kept a chair open for the silent, the shy, and the unseen. An old rainmaker invited Amara to stay during a storm. "You are not like thunder," he told her. "You are like the soft rain that stays longer." That night, she learned that power doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it comes gently, over time, and fills every empty space. One evening, the villagers lit lanterns and sent them into the sky. Each carried a word: hope, love, courage, peace. The wind scattered them across the kingdom. King Jabari watched from his balcony and whispered, "She has turned my land into light." A river divided to feuding villages. Amara visited both, listening with care. Then she gathered them at the water's edge and said, "Let's build a bridge not of wood, but of hands." Together, they worked until the bridge stood, and laughter crossed it first. In a crowded meeting, a young boy tried to speak, but was drowned out. Amara held up her hand. "Let us listen to the quietest voice," she said. And in that hush, the boy shared an idea that would one day save a harvest. Amara taught that all bread, no matter how different, comes from the same fire. In each village, she helped organize shared meals, where strangers became family. "Eat together," she said, "and the hunger of loneliness will pass." A drum sat unused in the palace, its skin dry and cracking. Amara asked the king if she might take it to the children of Nentolo. He agreed. Soon it beat with new rhythms in village dances. "It belonged to silence," said Amara. "Now it belongs to joy." A child brought Amara a woven circle made of vines, feathers, and shells. "This is your crown," she said. Amara wore it only once to remind everyone that crowns need not glitter to carry meaning. Some paths in Nentolo were overgrown and forgotten. Amara led villagers to clear one of them. As they worked, they found fruit trees, old carvings, and a spring. "Not all paths are meant to be new," she said. "Some are just waiting for us to return." One day, King Jabari walked through a village dressed as a traveler. He wanted to see what Amara saw. He listened, learned, and helped lift buckets of water. And when he returned to the palace, he wept not from sorrow, but from seeing the kingdom's quiet beauty. Amara helped organize a festival with no stage. No speeches, just circles for listening. People came from every corner of Nitolo, eager, not to talk, but to hear. It was the first time many had felt truly heard. And afterward, they spoke with more kindness and fewer words. A small girl gave Amara a leaf with holes bitten by caterpillars. "It's still beautiful," she said. "Even with the bites." Amara held it close. "So are we," she whispered. "Even with what life has chewed through." One day, Amara rested. She sat under a fig tree, drank sweet tea, and watched the clouds drift. A child asked, "Why aren't you fixing anything today?" Amara smiled. "Because peace isn't just built, it's also enjoyed." She began drawing a new map of Natolanot with rivers and roads, but with stories. This is where a girl found her voice. This is where enemies became friends. And when she was done, the kingdom didn't just see its land, they saw its heart. In a village where newcomers were often left out, Amara brought a bell. "Ring it," she said. "Whenever you see someone who needs to feel they belong." Soon, the bell rang daily. For widows, orphans, travelers, and the shy. Belonging became a sound everyone recognized. One night, children asked Amara, "Where does the sky sleep?" She smiled and said, "Where we tuck it in with kindness." They stitched a giant cloth of painted dreams and stretched it between two trees. And the stars blinked as if in thanks to teach empathy. Amara invited each villager to wear someone else's shoes for a day. A rich man wore a farmer's cracked sandals. A boy wore his grandmother's soft slippers. By sunset, they walked slower and listened more. A young artist in a far village drew pictures of Amara placing stars in the sky. When Amara saw the drawings, she hugged the girl. "You didn't just draw me," she said. "You drew every girl who dares to dream." To honor the people she met, Amara kept a scroll of names, every child, elder, and friend. When she passed a river, she whispered those names to it. "Let them flow with the water," she said. So the world remembers even the quiet ones. At a gathering, King Jabari stood and spoke. "Once, I asked Amara to be queen. Today, I ask forgiveness for thinking leadership wears only gold." The people stood with him, because change begins not with pride, but with humility. Amara helped design a village center with no doors, just wide open walls and shaded roofs. "Let this be a place where no one needs to knock," she said. and it became a space for healing, storytelling, and silent sitting. Amara, a child asked, "Who taught you to be so kind?" Amara closed her eyes and smiled. "Pain did. And then, so did love." The wind carried that answer, and it landed softly in the ears of every listener in one town. A drum circle had been abandoned after an old disagreement. Amara invited both sides back, saying, "Let us begin not with rhythm, but with listening." By nightfall, the drums thumped again, not in anger, but in unity. When Amara lit her last lantern that night, a child asked, "Will it go out?" Amara said, "Yes. But what it lit in you never will." And so, with her eyes full of stars and her heart full of stories, she whispered, "Let the light stay in you." Amara began gifting each child a seed wrapped in cloth. "This is your traveling garden," she'd say. "Plant it wherever you find a home." One day, from the sky, it was said you could spot the trail of her journey, green and blooming, across the land. A young boy asked her for a bedtime story. She told him one that stopped mid-sentence. "But what happens next?" he cried. "You decide." Amara smiled. "The story becomes yours now." And the boy smiled too, ready to begin. In one village, people often shouted. Amara sat them in a circle and gave them each a smooth stone. "When you hold the stone, you may speak. When you pass it, you must listen." The shouting softened. Soon, they were arguing kindly and with care. A weaver gifted Amara a robe, made from scraps of cloth given by each village. Some pieces were rough, others smooth, all stitched with love. She wore it only on days she felt unsure, because it reminded her that she was made of many. Amara placed an empty basket in the village. "Square, place your regrets here," she said, "and let's plant flowers over them." By the next moon, the basket overflowed with petals instead of pain. A boy who hadn't laughed since his sister passed sat beside Amara one evening. She didn't try to cheer him. She simply told him the silliest tale she knew. He tried not to smile. Then he laughed, and the stars blinked brighter. One morning, the birds in a quiet forest sang louder than ever. "They are trying to be heard," Amara said. "Let's listen." She sat with the children, heads tilted upward, learning that silence can be a song when shared. When a traveler mocked the villages for being poor, Amara simply knelt, scooped soil in her hands, and said, "Even the sky began as dust." The traveler said nothing more. But later, he was seen planting seeds. In one old village, Amara carved every child's name onto a great baobab tree. "So you know," she said, "you are rooted here, always," even as they grew and wandered. They came back and touched their names like blessings. One night, Amara sat with a girl who felt small and unsure. Amara handed her a mirror and said, "Tell her something kind." The girl whispered, "You are enough." And for the first time, she believed it. An old woman sang a lullaby no one had heard in years. "I sang this to my daughter, who sang it to none," she said softly. Amara learned the tune and taught it to the village children. The lullaby lived again, passing from one heart to another. In one village, a wall once used to divide neighbors stood bare. Amara gathered the children, handed them paints, and said, "Let's make it a memory instead." They painted scenes of unity, love, and sky, and the wall, once feared, became a canvas of healing. At a palace dinner, Amara chose to eat with the servants. "Every table has value," she said, "but I eat where stories are most alive." That night, the king changed the tradition. Everyone now ate together once a week, no titles spoken. A girl gave Amara a gift, a baby goat. "What will you name her?" the girl asked. Amara leaned in and asked the goat, "What do you wish to be called?" The goat bleated, "Then she shall be Mbizi." Amara laughed. "The one who answers back." In a place where families had drifted apart, Amara began a simple ritual. Before we speak, let's hold hands. Soon, it became habit. Even in arguments, hands reached first, reminding hearts of their shared warmth. A young boy whispered to Amara, "My sister can't go to school like I do." She held his words like treasure. That month, she returned to the palace and helped change the law. When the boy's sister heard, she danced under the moon in a forest. Amara made a bed of soft leaves and invited children to nap under the trees. "Even leaders must rest," she said, yawning. They slept together, heads rising and falling like gentle waves. The trees stood guard, whispering lullabies. A woman brought Amara a cracked clay pot. "It leaks," she said, ashamed. Amara smiled, filled it with flowers, and placed it at the village gate. "Beauty isn't always in holding," she said. "Sometimes it's in becoming something new." At each gathering, Amara widened the circle a little more. For the latecomers, the wanderers, the ones who've never been asked. By the end of that season, no one stood outside. The circle had room for everyone. Before leaving a village, Amara gave a question instead of a gift. "What do you want to remember about today?" Each person answered differently. And in their answers, the village found a story they could call their own. One chilly night, a village had no firewood. Amara gathered everyone in a circle and said, "Let's warm each other with stories." They spoke until dawn, wrapped in words. And though the fire never came, no one felt cold. When a girl stumbled during a dance, she ran away, ashamed. Amara followed and said, "Even steps backward are part of the rhythm." They returned together, dancing slow but proud. The others clapped, not for perfection, but for courage. A boy gifted Amara a hollowed calabash with tiny beads inside. "When you shake it, remember us," he said. She kept it tied to her pack. And whenever the wind blew it gently, she smiled, remembering the village that spoke in sound instead of letters. In the desert village of Umbaro, the wind erased paths daily. Amara taught the children to build small stone markers, guides that could not blow away. "Not all paths are made for feet," she said. "Some are made for memory." Amara planted a fig tree and asked every villager to whisper a promise into its roots. "It will grow strong with our hopes," she said. Years later, that tree stood tall and wide, its fruit sweeter than any other in NTO, low atop the great ridge. Amara shouted, "You are enough." And the mountain shouted it back. A girl nearby wept and whispered, "I needed to hear that." So they let the mountain repeat it, again and again, for every child who came. Amara left an empty clay bowl in a village square. "Fill it not with coins," she said, "but with paper wishes." By week's end, it brimmed with dreams. I wished to read, I wished to forgive, I wished to dance. And all were honored. Wherever Amara went, a girl claimed the moon. Followed her. "It listens to you," she said. Amara replied, "It listens to you too. You just haven't told your story yet." That night, the girl spoke hand. The moon seemed to shine only for her in one village. No one said goodbye to Amara. She looked puzzled, until an elder smiled. "You never truly leave what you've helped grow." Amara nodded, tears rising. "Then I will visit you in every kind word you speak." Before she left another dry village, Amara turned to the sky and whispered, "They are ready." Hours later, rain fell soft and steady. Children danced, and elders prayed. But Amara just smiled, knowing that sometimes change arrives only after we open our hearts. A group of weavers gifted Amara a cloth made from threads dyed in every village she had visited. "This is the story your feet have written," they said. She wore it only once on, the day she returned to where it all began. In a town full of dreams, a girl told Amara, "I don't sleep. I'm afraid I'll miss something." Amara gently placed a hand on her head. "Even stars rest," she said. That night, the girl slept peacefully for the first time. Knowing life would wait, Amara found an old letter in her satchela. Reply she had written to the king long ago, but never sent. It read, "I forgive you, and I thank you for learning." She left it on the palace windowsill and walked away with peace in her heart. In her final night in the far villages, children lit jars with fireflies and lined the road. "So you can find your way back," they said. Amara wept, not from sadness, but from the beauty of being loved without being held. King Jabari visited a village alone, wearing no crown, no shoes. "Amara taught me to feel the soil before giving commands," he said. The people welcomed him not as a ruler, but as one of their own. And for once, he truly was. Amara and the daughters built a library under a giant tree. Instead of silence, it rang with giggles, riddles, and soft singing. The books were filled with drawings, dreams, and tales because every story deserved to be remembered in joy. Amara knelt by a river and saw her reflect Conrad, wiser, still kind. "I have not changed," she whispered. "I have returned to myself." And in the ripples, she saw all the girls she had inspired looking back at a festival. The king offered Amara a crown again, this time not for marriage, but for honor. Amara took it in her hands, then placed it on a child's head. "Let each girl wear this crown in her own way," she said. And so, it passed from child to child, never resting in one place. Years later, in distant towns, people still spoke of her. She came with nothing but her name, left us with everything we needed. The wind carried Amara like a prayer. It meant grace, strength, and the power to choose your path. Once a girl was asked to give up her dreams for a crown. She said no, not out of anger, but out of love for something greater. Because of her, a kingdom bloomed. And every night, across Natolo, children sleep soundly, knowing they, too, can say no and still change the world.